Julius Caesar, the architect of Rome's fall. The story of Julius Caesar is not merely one of triumph and glory, it is a tale of ambition, betrayal, and the dark undercurrents of power that consumed the Roman Republic. Born into a world of political instability and bloodshed, Caesar rose to prominence through a combination of cunning, ruthlessness, and an unyielding desire for dominance. His life and career were marked by a relentless pursuit of power, culminating in the destruction of the very system that had nurtured him. The Roman Republic, once a beacon of governance and law, was torn apart by Caesar's actions, leaving in its wake an empire built on the ashes of liberty. This essay explores Caesar's origins, his meteoric rise, and the dark legacy of his role in overturning the Republic. Now, before we move on with the story, please help a small channel grow. Like and subscribe. It means a lot to me. Okay, back to the story. Origins: a world of blood and shadows. Julius Caesar was born in 100 BCE, a time when Rome was teetering on the edge of chaos. The Republic, once a model of balanced governance, had become a battleground for rival factions. The Optimates, the conservative aristocracy, sought to maintain their grip on power, while the Populares, reformers who championed the cause of the plebeians, fought for change. It was into this world of strife and ambition that Caesar was born. The Julian family, though ancient and noble, was not among the most influential in Rome. Caesar's early years were shaped by the shadow of his uncle, Gaius Marius, a military leader and popularis figure who had risen to prominence through his reforms and victories. Marius's influence on Caesar was profound, instilling in him a belief in the power of the people and the importance of military might. However, Marius's career also exposed Caesar to the brutal realities of Roman politics. The social war and the subsequent Sullan proscriptions, a period of bloody purges under the dictator Lucius Cornelius Sulla, left an indelible mark on the young Caesar. Sulla's reign of terror, during which thousands of Marius's supporters were executed, taught Caesar that power in Rome was not won through virtue but through force and fear. Caesar's early career was marked by a series of calculated moves to rebuild his family's fortunes. He served in the military, honing his skills as a leader and strategist. His time in Asia and Spain earned him a reputation for bravery and ambition. Yet, even in these early years, there were whispers of a darker side to Caesar. His willingness to align himself with powerful figures, regardless of their morality, hinted at the ruthlessness that would define his later career. Rise to power: the path of ambition. Caesar's rise to power was not a straightforward ascent but a treacherous climb marked by alliances, betrayals, and bloodshed. His political career began in earnest with his election as quaestor in 69 BCE, followed by his appointment as Pontifex Maximus in 63 BCE. These positions gave him a platform to build his influence, but it was his formation of the first triumvirate in 60 BCE that catapulted him to the forefront of Roman politics. The triumvirate, an informal alliance between Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus, was a marriage of convenience, each man using the others to further his own ambitions. For Caesar, the alliance was a means to secure his election as consul in 59 BCE and to gain command of the provinces of Gaul. It was in Gaul that Caesar's true nature began to emerge. Over the course of 8 years, he waged a brutal campaign of conquest, subjugating the Gallic tribes and expanding Rome's territory. The Gallic Wars were marked by acts of extreme violence, including the massacre of entire villages and the enslavement of thousands. Caesar's own writings, Commentarii de Bello Gallico, glorify his achievements, but they also reveal a man willing to use terror as a tool of control. While Caesar was in Gaul, the political landscape in Rome was shifting. The death of Crassus in 53 BCE and the growing rivalry between Caesar and Pompey shattered the fragile balance of the triumvirate. The Senate, dominated by the Optimates, saw an opportunity to curb Caesar's power. In 49 BCE, they ordered him to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. Caesar's response was swift and decisive. Crossing the Rubicon River with his legions, he declared, "Alea iocta est," the die is cast. This act of defiance marked the beginning of a civil war that would engulf Rome. Overturning the Republic, the descent into tyranny. The civil war between Caesar and Pompey was not merely a struggle for power, it was a battle for the soul of Rome. Caesar's victory at the Battle of Pharsalus in 48 BCE forced Pompey to flee to Egypt, where he was assassinated. With his rival dead, Caesar turned his attention to consolidating his power. He was appointed dictator in 46 BCE, and later dictator for life in 44 BCE. These titles, once temporary measures to address crises, became symbols of Caesar's absolute authority. Caesar's reforms were sweeping and transformative. He redistributed land to veterans and the poor, reformed the calendar, and expanded Roman citizenship. Yet, these measures were not acts of benevolence but tools of control. By weakening the Senate and centralizing power in his own hands, Caesar dismantled the Republic's institutions. His rule was marked by a growing cult of personality, with statues and coins bearing his likeness and public celebrations of his achievements. To many, it seemed that Caesar was laying the groundwork for a monarchy, a prospect that horrified the Roman elite. The darker aspects of Caesar's rule became increasingly apparent. His clemency toward former enemies, often praised as a virtue, was in reality a calculated move to undermine opposition. By sparing his foes, he forced them into a position of dependence, stripping them of the moral high ground. At the same time, his authoritarian tendencies alienated even his closest allies. The Senate, once the heart of Roman governance, was reduced to a rubber stamp for Caesar's decrees. The Ides of March, a republic's last gasp. The end of Caesar's reign came not on the battlefield, but in the Senate chamber. On March 15, 44 BCE, a group of senators, led by Brutus and Cassius, assassinated Caesar in a desperate attempt to restore the Republic. The conspirators saw themselves as liberators, but their actions only plunged Rome into further chaos. The civil wars that followed culminated in the rise of Octavian, later Augustus, Caesar's adopted heir, and the establishment of the Roman Empire. Caesar's death was a tragic irony. He had sought to save Rome from itself, yet his actions hastened its descent into tyranny. The Republic, with all its flaws, had been a system of checks and balances, a fragile experiment in governance. Caesar's ambition shattered that system, replacing it with a regime built on the cult of personality and the concentration of power. Legacy. The shadow of Caesar. Julius Caesar's legacy is a complex and dark one. He was a man of extraordinary talent and vision, yet his pursuit of power came at a terrible cost. The republic he sought to reform was destroyed, and the empire he helped create would become a symbol of autocracy and oppression. Caesar's life serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition and the fragility of democratic institutions. In the end, Caesar's story is not one of heroism but of hubris. He sought to shape the world in his image, but in doing so, he unleashed forces that would consume him and the society he sought to save. The Roman Republic fell, not with a whimper, but with the clash of swords and the cries of betrayal. And in its place rose an empire, built on the blood of its citizens and the ashes of its ideals. Thank you for watching my video. Please, like and subscribe.